it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome to Fail Friday, the series where I either fix your baking fail, my baking fail, or I tell you how to avoid a fail. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a cake fail story. And yes, I have plenty of them. So let's get into it. So when I first started working at the commercial bakery that I worked at, I had only really made 7 cakes or so before I started my position there. So I was learning more and more how to crumb coat cakes properly, how to cover them in fondant. So I would say that this kind of took place maybe a few weeks down the road of me working at this shop. And I was learning a lot. So at the time, I was running the actual storefront. So running the storefront means that you're sweeping, you're mopping, you're helping customers, and you're filling the cases with cupcakes, you're icing cupcakes, and you're baking. That's pretty much what the storefront would do. And then we would always have a cake decorator. Now, this is when the cake decorator did not own the bakery, she was just a worker. So the cake decorator was working on this cake, and then usually the protocol was once you were finished working on all of your cakes for the day, then you could go home. And the person that was running the storefront would just stay and would give away all of the cakes. So of course, that person finished up all of their decorating and they went home. One of the cakes they made was supposed to be a square. And it was supposed to have, I don't know, this kind of like castle overlay on top. At the time, it looked like an impossibility for me to make. So I was just really intrigued watching her make this cake. I was like, wow, that's really cool. You've employed a lot of different techniques that I've never seen before. So my day continues on. I'm helping out customers. And this customer that came to get this castle overlay cake comes to pick up her cake. And I say, here you go. Here is your cake. And she looks at it and she's staring at it. And I'm just kind of trying to read her face. And she's like, oh no. And I'm like, in my heart thinking, oh no, what? Oh no. Because at this point, I don't really have much control on how to fix many problems because I really hadn't been working at the shop for that long. In fact, I think I had just gotten married a few weeks before. So I was kind of off my game a little bit when it came to how to run this bakery. So she says to me, this cake is supposed to be a square cake, not a round cake. Now, if you know anything about making cakes, we all kind of start off on a round cake because covering a round cake with fondant is a lot easier than paneling on a square cake. So for me, I really didn't know how to make a square cake at all. So she says to me, I need this fixed. I need this finished for tonight at the latest or something like that. And I just kind of said in my best customer service voice, I'm really, really sorry for this error. I'm going to call the owner and see what she can do. So I called the owner, who at the time doesn't know how to make cakes at all, does not have any decorating experience, but solely relies on the girl that was doing the decorating and had already gone home. And I'm at the shop by myself, not very well versed in cakes quite yet. I did know how to make cookies, but cakes was a different story. So I then call the owner and I say, what am I supposed to do? You know, there's this issue going on. I don't know how to fix it. I can try my best. So she's kind of panicking because there's not really much she can do either. And she knows that the girl that already went home is done for the day. So there could be a plethora of things that she's doing other than that. So I kind of say, you know what, I'm going to try my best. I'll rebake the cake and I will bake it into a square and I'm going to try my best. And the owner says, okay, thanks for trying. Now, then I go and I say to this customer, I'm really, really sorry that this happened. I'm going to try my best to rebake this for you, and I'm going to make it for you and try to make sure that it is a square and not round. She says, thank you so much. And I also say to her, but I can't guarantee that this is going to turn out. And she says, okay, as long as you give it a try. So then I go on my way and she leaves and I'm sweating at this point because not only am I running the storefront, but I'm also trying to bake the cakes too. And if you've ever been at a bakery before where they're fairly successful, then you know customers kind of have a steady flow coming in and out. And it's hard to get anything else done when you're trying to focus on getting all the customers what they need. So I bake the cakes. Now, I don't know why, but at the time, the recipe that we were using for our chocolate cake recipe was not well suited for cakes at all. It was not a firm recipe. It was very light and fluffy. So any amount of buttercream on there really collapsed it. And it tasted amazing as a cupcake, but as a cake, it really did not do well. We couldn't even put those cakes on bottoms of 2-tiered cakes because it would sink in. So anyway, I bake these cakes and I let them cool. And as we all know as cake decorators, letting cakes cool can take forever when you're waiting for them to cool. So I took the cakes, I unmolded them out of the cake pan and I stuck them in the freezer to try and hurry the process. And then I get to crumb coating. And I'm trying to crumb coat this super, super light and airy cake. And I'm crumb coating and literally all the crumbs of the cake are coming off. The sides are no longer those nice sharp edges and everything just kind of looks blah and rounded. Now at this time, I didn't really know the magic of buttercream and how putting things in the fridge and just stopping and then restarting again would actually help me. And I was just panicking. So honestly, I just didn't know what to do. And keep in mind, I had made cakes at home, so it wasn't like I didn't know how to make cakes at all. It was just that the protocol of the bakery was a little bit blurry for me. And working with different products and different ways of doing things is super, super challenging. So I think I had about an hour and a half left to get this cake done. So it was crumb coated, not well I might add, and I don't think I left it in the fridge long enough. This was a really long time ago, almost a decade ago, so I can't remember everything super clearly. And I honestly wish that I had a picture of this to show you the fail that was my cake. So anyway, there was this kind of castle-like pattern on the top of the cake, and I really did not know at the time how to create this. So I remember watching the girl decorating this before, so I tried to follow suit on what she had done and place it over the cake. Well, the cake was just awful. Like the fondant was crimped on the side and you could see the filling kind of coming out a little bit. So I had this giant mess of materials which were completely wasted, threw it in the garbage, and then I had to do the hard job of calling the customer and saying, I am so, so sorry. I really, really tried my best to create this cake that you wanted in the correct shape. But I think that you should probably take the round cake, which is at least a standing cake that looks beautiful. It's just the wrong shape. The owner of the bakery will perhaps compensate you later on for this issue. I really, really apologize. So basically that's what happened. But there's some things that I haven't told you yet. So naturally, the customer was pretty upset in the first place that the cake was not the right shape. That was definitely not good. And I think that somewhere along the lines down there, she did talk to another person that wasn't me, and they had gotten her more upset about the situation somehow. It kind of slips my memory as to why that happened, but that happened. And so a couple days pass, and I'm assuming that everything worked out with this cake, or worked out as much as it can work out in a fail situation like this. I arrived to work one day to open the storefront, and my boss pulls me aside and she's like, that person that was really upset with their cake order before, she was not happy with me, but she was really happy with the way you handled things, and she dropped off this gift card for you and a note just thanking you for how well you handled the situation. Phew, that was very, very stressful. And as a worker, I always want to make sure that I'm trying my very best, as I'm sure you all do as well when you are working under somebody else. But it can just be stressful when you're working for somebody that you know that they own that company. Sometimes it's easier to work for like big companies because you don't necessarily see the person that owns the whole company. But when you know it's kind of like a mom and pop shop and they're relying on you to make sure that their business does well, you can feel a lot of pressure to make sure that things work out well for them, especially if you have a great boss like I did. So, and now let's fix that fail. So this advice that I'm going to be giving you is very commercial bakery focused because a lot of what happened because of miscommunication and breakdown in protocols. So if you're someone that runs your own baking business with staff, then these ideas might help you. So the first thing is, I think that the order form was not very clear. The person that takes the order has the utmost important job because you are the person that is communicating. A lot of the time when you're working in a bakery, the person that writes down the order is not always the person that actually completes the order. So it is so important that you have a really good system for taking orders. Something I found that really worked in my own place of business was making sure that I gave the person a copy of the order so that they could take a look at it. Once they sign at the bottom that they're completely happy with the way that order looks, that's it. And in this case, had she looked at the order form and saw, oh, it's a round cake, she might have said, I want a square cake. Round cake is circled here. So I think that was the first issue. Now that issue can only be solved if it was in fact the order taker's mistake. But I can't remember if it quite was the order taker's mistake. It could have been this. It could have been on the part of the decorator. And when you're decorating a lot of cakes, it's easy to make a lot of mistakes. So it's super important that you read, reread, and triple check everything before you go home for the day and you're done decorating your cakes. The next thing that could have been fixed is the fact that we were using a chocolate cake recipe that really was not conducive for cakes at all. Before you open your bakery or before you start actually using products for cakes, you need to make sure that it is specific to cakes and that it's going to be able to withstand all of those decorations that you're going to need to put on it. The next thing is making sure that your bakers know how to crumb coat cakes and all of that kind of stuff. I felt like I didn't really have the proper training yet in order to be left on my own and help fix cake mistakes. And I kind of know that it was the owner's intention that I wouldn't really be working on cakes, but I really feel it's important that most people at the shop should be able to do some level of decorating. Do they need to be experts? No, but I think doing things like being able to crumb coat, being able to ice a cupcake properly, those are all things that should just kind of be the minimum requirements if you don't want to have a stressful scheduling situation. Now, I talked about how I really couldn't understand how to do that whole castle piece. So what I had tried to do was cut out the piece and then kind of lay it on like a tablecloth. What I should have done is I should have done strip paneling on the side. That way I would have definitely avoided the fail of it not having edges and kind of falling apart. And that falling apart happened, yes, because of the chocolate cake recipe, but also because I should have put it in the fridge or freezer for a longer time before trying to coat it in fondant. And lastly, this is a customer service tip. Now, in this story, I did actually do okay with the customer service part, but it's really important that everybody at your shop has a working understanding of how we should address customers. It's really good when you have protocols in place that are blanketed and they can kind of deal with things as they come. Now, this is trickier because if you have staff that's inexperienced or staff that maybe hasn't dealt with a lot of customers, It can be tricky to diffuse situations when you haven't really been in them before. So I just think this takes really proper staff training on how to deal with customer issues. And when a customer situation is a little bit maybe too heavy for the person that's on shift, there should be some sort of protocol about calling the boss and having the owner speak with the customer directly. Now, of course, this is more complicated than I'm making it sound, because obviously a boss and an owner can have a life outside of their shop, and they should be able to kind of go throughout their day without being constantly interrupted with things that are happening at their store. Their staff should be able to handle that. But this is always my motto. You should always talk to the customer as if you were in their shoes. So I think it would really be a big bummer if I had ordered a square cake and it came out round, especially because I think this particular thing was based on having the cake square. So far, it hasn't steered me wrong. And also, as the owner, of course, I've said this before as well, you don't want to give too many discounts and refunds. But in this case, because it was a direct mistake and not the customer's fault at all, you should probably give some extra cupcakes or a partial refund for that mistake. And I think that had we just kind of gone that route in the first place, maybe things would have been better. I'm not really sure what route we had taken in that, but I do know that this customer was a little upset, so something must have occurred. So I hope you enjoyed that little cake fail story. And if you're going through a cake fail right now, maybe you messed something up with a customer, don't worry. It happens to all of us. And sometimes it happens frequently. I sometimes found that I made mistakes in threes. So it wouldn't just be one mistake. It would be one mistake, two mistakes, three mistakes, and then finally I would get it right for months, and maybe it would happen again. But I assure you, the longer that you do this, the longer that you run a at-home bakery or you run a commercial bakery, you're going to refine your practice more and more and more. And honestly, these cake fails now are far and few between. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye! Be sure to submit your baking fail, and it could be fixed by next Friday.